Mark Garner here, not Gordo today. I'm interviewing Michael Taylor. I've known him for nearly 20 years, and I was introduced by a mutual friend, Tony Wilson, the late great Tony Wilson. We had a company in those days called Mimble. The purpose of the interview is recently I've noticed that Michael's become political, and I would imagine that any man of a certain age that becomes political is either unusual or a masochist. Why have you decided to get into politics, Michael?
Well, there weren't any openings in a estate agency, and I've tried journalism, so I was looking for another unpopular profession. But seriously, I think it's a time of crisis, and my politics have always been very much on the centre ground. I believe in consensus. I work at a university now. In all the time that I was a journalist, I wasn't politically active, but I was massively politically interested. I interviewed David Cameron and George Osborne when they were in opposition for Insider, and I was interested in the fermentation of ideas. And you can't not be in a city like Manchester. And it's been an element of our relationship over the years, and just about where the city comes from, the statues to great ideas that exist all around our city. So yeah, I think the hour is upon us that I'm friendly with Anne Coffey, who's the MP for Stockport, who was one of the Labour MPs that made the very, very courageous decision to break with their party because they could no longer stomach the anti-Semitism, the bullying, and frankly the leftward drift of the Labour Party. She made a stance and she left. Now, I was one of the first people to go and see her that weekend when she came back to her constituency, and she said, "Why don't you get involved? Why don't you come and get involved in what we're building?" And I said, well, keep us in touch. I never expected there to be European elections, but I do see it as an opportunity to just stake a claim to a new voice in politics. I was heartened that Conservative MPs joined with their Labour colleagues as well to form a group in the House of Commons. But that's why I've put my name into the ring to be a candidate for Change UK for the European Parliament elections.
Okay, the reason why I'm interviewing Michael today is I don't like interviewing politicians, not my gig. It was Michael himself. I've known Michael, I say, for a long time, but he interviewed me about 11 years ago, and it was the fairest interview I've ever had from a member of the press, to be fair, because my background, which includes bankruptcies, pornography, and whatever you want to think of, is an easy target for lazy journalists. But I was astonished at the fairness, and the reality is that if I see a man who's going into politics as far as Michael, I'm interested in the man, probably more than the politics, to be fair. But let's get on to the politics of this. You decided to get into the game, but what's happened over the last 10 days, and this is as fast as this thing is happening, is we've seen Farage polarise the Brexiteers in a highly effective manner. Whether you like him or you don't like him, he's a very good communicator. I saw that you decided on change, which I like the sound of, if I'm being honest with myself. I also like the sound of the Greens, and I was quietly astonished that the Lib Dems have got so far. Why can't you three guys work together and find the Farage?
Well, I don't think that's what Farage has done. Let's be perfectly honest about this. Farage has made the running on the Brexit side of the argument because, of course, there are many parties who support Brexit also standing in this election, like the Labour Party, the Conservative Party, UKIP, and that unmentionable right-wing thug who's also standing in the Northwest, who I'm not going to dignify with his made-up name. So what we're looking to do in this election with the Liberal Democrats and the Greens, who are overtly Remain, is actually give people an opportunity, give them the chance to vote for something that isn't simply the Liberal Democrats or Green. There are people who won't go there. There are people who are instinctive Labour voters who are dissatisfied with the role that the Lib Dems took in the coalition government, for instance, who are maybe just put off by the Lib Dem brand. And the Greens as well. I'm hugely sympathetic to an environmental stance. I think climate change is an emergency facing everybody, but I wouldn't join the Green Party because I fundamentally disagree with their attitude towards business, which is too punitive on taxation. I don't agree with the lifestyle choices they're going to demand of people, and I disagree with their stance on nuclear power. But I'm not here to bash other parties, but you're asking what the distinctions are between them. But what we do all share, and what the purpose of this election is all about, is making a stand for remaining in the EU and actually having a vote on the government's deal that they haven't quite cobbled it together yet, but whatever they do end up cobbling together with the connivance of the Labour Party, put it back to the people.
We'll go on to the vote in a moment. I think I read in the New Statesman that there's a guy there saying if you get you'll get between 5 and 7% of the vote has changed UK, according to him. That's only his personal opinion. But he also says that it could be seen as poor, but on the other hand, it could be seen as a great result for you guys, given the fact that you just jumped off the racehorse 10 minutes ago in political terms. What do you think about 5 to 7% showing if the MEP vote goes ahead?
Well, it could be anything. You can't ask me to quote opinion poll figures because they change all the time.
Yeah.
And if you'll excuse the pun as well, this feels like a startup. I've been involved in all sorts of different businesses over the years. And it's got a real feel. It's got that kind of energy about it. We've got a rally in Manchester on the 21st of May, a couple of days before polling day, our final rally before the election. And I think if people come along to that, they'll see and feel the energy of something that's new, that's an attempt to break this horrible division that's been brought forward in society, and our political system is cracked. It's wide open for reform, for change, and for somebody to make the really emotional case for us being an open and engaged country once again, and an open and engaged city like Manchester is. We're going to be mortally harmed by Brexit, and it's an opportunity for us to make a case for a new kind of politics.
What would you say to people talking about democracy, that democracy is an unnatural form of government for the human race? Unnatural. People said that democracy has been around for a few hundred years. Tyrannical leadership has been around for 140,000 years.
Yeah.
Would you say that this is an unnatural state or a natural state, or is it the right way to go?
I don't know whether it's natural or unnatural. I think it's a system that we've got now that works, and I think that's where human systems have evolved to. Even countries that aren't democratic, at least, always look to have the pretense of democracy. So why shouldn't we, as the original democratic state, actually advance the cause of democracy in its purest form? And I'm a huge supporter of public participation in it. I'm doing a master's thesis on it, for God's sake, and I want to. I want our society to be more democratic and to devolve powers at a democratic level at the most appropriate place.
Talking about the internet, for example, and democracy, is the fact that we can have instant democracy through the internet, has that been the thing that's changed over the last 5 years? I would think for the worse sometimes, that you can have a vote and that's the vote by the people, and about 10 minutes later somebody says, but we didn't talk about the big grizzly bear around the corner, let's have another vote. Is
that what you're saying we're doing with calling for another referendum?
This is what I'm leading on to, the question that people will ask you. Why on earth, if we're a democratic society, we've been able to do this vote very, very quickly, and why shouldn't it be stuck to?
Yeah, what was the question that was asked in 2016? It was a quite straightforward, shall we remain in the EU or shall we leave, right? And all the campaign rhetoric around that, and when I woke up that next morning and I digested that result, my interpretation of it was it would be something like Norway or Switzerland's relationship with the EU, right? And you can go back and you can quote Nigel Farage or Daniel Hannan or probably even Boris Johnson and all their promises that they made in that election about what they said and what they thought leaving the European Union would entail.
Yeah.
That is not what has happened. Yeah? The prescription that we now have, their interpretation of that result is markedly different. It's completely different. They're even talking about leaving with no deal with the European Union at all, and the Europeans are baffled by this. The British people, on a whole, are baffled by it. They don't understand the ramifications of it and what it might mean, and the harm that it's going to be doing. So now that we do know, and we also know culturally what's happened to our country in the 3 years since, how poisonous, how racist, how divided that we've become, we have an opportunity to actually press the reset button and say, all right, so we know what type of Brexit is now on offer. Let's give people the opportunity to see whether they still want it. Now, I'm not going to be a neutral actor in that. Me and other people in politics are going to be making the case for Remain. I don't know where the Labour Party are on it, frankly, but I do accept that the result of the referendum in 2016 was to leave, but I don't think it was clear on what terms.
Talking about the terms, at the moment, we have one clear idea, which is Theresa May's idea. Do you give her any credit for being able to get that together with the grief she's had, the poison chalice? Do you feel, therefore, if you give that idea some credit, will the vote be either we Remain or it's on Theresa May's piece? Or is there some other form of vote that you're thinking about?
It could be. It could be in different stages. You could offer people the honest menu of options. It could be if that, then this. I mean, a very complicated ballot. They've done two-stage ballots in other jurisdictions. So you asked me, am I sympathetic to the position that Theresa May's found herself in? Only to an extent. I think she interpreted the referendum result incorrectly because she's tried to impose a very hard Brexit, leaving the customs union, leaving the structures of the European Union, and I don't think that was entirely the message that people were sending.
Yeah.
And I think incorrectly as well, she interpreted the 2017 general election as a mandate for what she was doing. You know, she didn't really win. It was a deadlock. She's operating like she achieved the 150 seat majority that she thought she was entitled to, and she didn't. So what she should have done is what she's doing now, which is sitting down with other parties and saying, okay, what can we agree on? Now Lucy Powell, the MP for Manchester Central, has put forward Brexit, European Union 2.0. There's been people putting forward a confirmatory referendum. Labour are putting together their, well, I don't know what it is because it's incoherent, but there have been various people who have tried to put forward compromises, but it's too late and it's meant that she's had to extend. She should have been doing that straight away. She should have been doing that straight after that she got installed into office after David Cameron ran away and put his trotters up in Nice. And she should frankly have sat down with people from the word go.
Yeah, okay. The coming back to the vote again, some people are saying, listen, it is either out or in. For 3 years after that vote, which the public, to be fair to them, said, well, we out or we in? Yeah, that bus going around with £350 million a week, I think if anybody actually believed that then, they shouldn't be allowed to vote, in my opinion. But the thing is that I went to sleep in New York, thinking that we were staying in, and I woke up and we were out with the bellboy laughing at me.
Yeah.
It's completely confused me, and but I said, I'm a Democrat, what we should be doing next is this. And in my mind as a businessman, the most harmful thing over the last 3 years is indecision. My father taught me the most important thing as a business leader is to get on with it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
I would say to you lot of politicians, you completely mess the whole thing up with indecision, lunacy, you name it. It's been a mad 3 years. Why has that happened?
Well, you can't pin the blame on me. I'm not a politician. I'm standing.
He is.
I'm standing.
Don't let him squirm out of that one.
No, I'm not squirming out of it. I agree with you. You know, I said in answer to your last question, what should have been done? You know, I worked in business. I look at compromises. I worked with some of the brightest business people in the Northwest, and looked at how they approach complex problems. And it is by building a consensus. And I don't see any evidence of that by Theresa May, and I've not seen any evidence of that by anybody, frankly. And that was the message. There was an opportunity. It was a 52-48 vote. It wasn't 100. It wasn't 99 to 1. And I think other countries that have come through a healing process, take Ireland for example, they had a referendum on the whole issue of the abortion laws, right? And they had a commission. They looked at what the question should be. and they had a referendum on it, and there hasn't been the social division that people would have expected over an issue that's would previously, I think, have divided opinion. And I think it's a symbol of a modern and collaborative democracy. That's what we should have done around the whole issue of our relationship with the European Union. The way the last campaign was conducted was a total disaster. You know, I did a few things for that campaign, and I made my own errors of judgment in it, tiny in microcosm compared to some of the other big decisions that were taken, which was effectively to run it like it was a Conservative Party election campaign by David Cameron and George Osborne. And I'm sorry, but that's not going to wash in large parts of the north of England, where you can't push the message that says, you know, retain our prosperity. Because if you're living in parts of Stoke or parts of Stockport or huge parts of the north of the whole of our country, we'll go, what prosperity? So it was a bad campaign on a bad message.
Okay, what happens if we have this vote, or this series of votes, and it lands in the favour of Remainers, but by the same margins?
I think it's an opportunity to reset our relationship with the European Union, because this country clearly is not wholly comfortable with how we take rules from Europe, with how we interpret those. I think there's some very clear messages around immigration, for instance, which have to be taken on board in how British government policies set in the future. But I think it's also an opportunity to say what the European Union isn't responsible for. Anyway, I mentioned immigration just now. Immigration won't reduce as a result of us leaving the EU. We actually do have agency as a country. We do have control over things like that. People in my family who are vehemently in favour of Brexit send me things on Facebook that say, did you know that the pension in Germany is £500 a month and in Britain it's £250? It's like, well, that's a choice by the German government.
Yeah.
That's German government autonomous policy within the European framework.
Yeah.
We're not told to do quite as much by Europe as the Brexiteers would have you think we are.
Okay. Coming away from what happened 3 years ago to what's happening today, you are part of the system. I think there's 67 of you in change going to the ME as MEPs. I think there are 11 that are MPs in change. I can't believe this is happening personally, but you may find yourself being elected. Not that it's you. I'm saying that the whole thing, this vote for MEPs is going to happen. But if it does, you are going to be spending quite a lot of time away from your family. And I know that you are a great family man. Are you prepared for that as a person if we vote you in?
Yeah, I wouldn't have done it if I wasn't.
Okay, fair enough. It's a long way from Marple, your beloved home. And when we look at this whole thing about Europe, what is your personal opinion of the last 40 or 50 years of Europe as being important in Europe? What do you think is the most important reason why we're part of to remain? I call it common market. I showed how old I am.
Yeah.
I voted. I voted to go in it. You know, so to be fair, I don't like the idea. People say, "Oh, well, you know, we already had one. You know, that's it. We've done that." Well, I had one 40 years ago. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I voted to get in.
Did you?
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Nobody calls the referendum in 2016 a second referendum, by the way.
No, exactly. That's my point there. And as you know, I'm not here to be a professional interviewer. I'm comment, but there you go. I'm all for staying in there. I have my own opinion as to why it is vital to stay in, and it's not just about money. What are yours apart from prosperity-ish? Probably it's not even that.
It's peace. It's peace and learning from each other.
Yeah.
In the years since this country voted by a very narrow margin to leave the European Union, I've been on holiday to Denmark, Belgium, Germany, and Estonia, Finland, and I've had a fantastic time. I'm going to France next month for a short break, and every time I go I learn something new. Did you know, for instance, that Estonia is introducing a free public transport system? Estonia is also one of the world's most advanced digital states. We have something to learn from all of these places. I've got colleagues who I work with at Manchester Met University who work on collaborative programmes for the European Union, and that spirit of cooperation between different countries, we can learn so much, and it gives so much opportunity to our young people. My kids are devastated by the opportunity, by what's happening. One of them isn't, by the way. He's in the army. He's quite excited by Brexit, and he's quite adamant he's not going to vote for me as well. But my kids who have ambitions to work in business, and either in fashion or in politics or in the media industry, are devastated by this and the opportunities it's going to curtail.
If I had my way, we'd be staying in. Let's put that on record. And the major reason is because I've only got one level, but I've been making up for it ever since, and hopefully. But the reality is that if you're not a student of history, you're a fool, because if you understand the history of Europe over the past 300-400 years, we're the luckiest people alive over the last 60. It's because of what we're doing here.
To have been born British in the second half of the 21st century is to have been born very, very lucky indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on that, thank you very much, Michael. It's charming seeing you again.
It's nice to see you too.
I'm pissed off that he's looking a lot younger than I'm looking, I've got to tell you. But there you
I
go.
literally am younger than you are, though.